Today we are going to learn more about linear functions, and we're going to be writing linear functions that relates y to x. So what we have up at the top is a linear function is a function whose graph is a non-vertical line, and it can be written in the form of y equals mx plus b, which is what we've seen already. It's slope-intercept form. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically look at charts and tables and graphs, and we're going to write linear functions that relates y to x. Guys, again, it's slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So we have this first example right here, and what we need to know is our m, which is our slope. It is rise over run, and then we also have to find our b, which is our y-intercept, and that's where it crosses the y-axis. So let's find our slope. To find your slope, you find 2 points on your graph, and you have your rise, which is actually a -1, and your run is a 2. So your slope is actually -1/2, and our y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, and that's at -1. So our linear function is when we just plug it in. So y equals our m, or our slope, is -1/2 x, and then b is our -1. It's where it crosses the y-axis, and that is your linear function. Go ahead and try the next one on your own. Find out what your slope is first, so that's your rise over run, and then you're going to find out what your b is, your y-intercept, and then plug it into the equation. Check back to see if your answers are correct. All right, this is the equation you should have come up with. Your slope is a 3/2, which means you go up 3/2 to get to that next point that's positive, and your y-intercept is at -3, and so we just put that in the equation, and that's your answer. Now we have a table, so one way that you can answer is to just graph these points, and then you could do what we did prior. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to plot these points as coordinates. So I have -3, and then I go up 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have to unfortunately go off the graph, but I have 9. Then I go to -2, 7, -1, 5, and 0, 3. So I'm given this line now. So let's look at our slope. My slope from one point to the next, my rise is -2, and my run is a +1, so our slope is a -2. And then my y-intercept, which is b, is where it crosses the y-axis, which is a +3. So to put that all together, it's y equals our m, which is -2x, plus 3, which is our b, our y-intercept. Go ahead and try the next one on your own and see if your answer is correct. All right, your answer here, our slope was 0 because we have a straight horizontal line. Our y-intercept is at 2, and so we have the equation of y equals 2. This is also, if you remember, a HOI, horizontal line, 0 slope, y equals a number. Now we have a couple word problems we will do. It says graph the data in the table and then write a linear function that relates y to x, which is again slope-intercept form. And then it says how many calories did you burn in 4.5 hours? So we're going to go ahead and just graph this first and figure it all out. Now I am going to put up a scale for our graph. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to label. So we have hours, kayaking is our x values, and it looks like we're going to go to 8, so I'm going to just write that in, 2, 4, 6, 8. And then we have calories burned, so we have the calories burned on our y-axis, and it's going up looks like by 600s, so we're going to have a 300 limit. So it's 300, 600, 900, 1200, 1500, 1800, 2100, 2400, and 2700. And that's where I'm going to kind of stop right here. So let's go ahead and start graphing. So we have at 2 hours, we burned 600 calories. Put my point. At 4 hours, we burned 1200 calories. At 6 hours, we burned 800 calories, 1800. And then at 8 hours, we burned 2,400 calories. So we have our function that we graphed. Now we have to write a linear function that relates y to x, which is just a slope-intercept form. So let's pretend that we are continuing on this line. So first off, for our slope, okay, we are going up and then over, right? Our rise over run. Our rise goes from 600 to 1,200. So that means we're going up 600 calories for every 2 hours because we went from 2 to 4. So this is our slope. Now, this is also a fraction. What's 600 divided by 2? Well, it's 300, okay? So now that's our slope. But now let's talk about our y-intercept. So we see that we're going up 2 over 2. Let's go down 2 over 2. And look, this is our y-axis right here. So that's what our that's what our y-intercept is, which is at 0. Okay, so let's plug this into slope-intercept form. We have y equals 300x plus 0, or you can completely wipe that out and we just have y equals 300x. And guys, what this means, if we were to interpret it, is you burn 300 calories for every 1 hour of kayaking. Now, we did A, so I'm going to rewrite it up here. The linear function is y equals 300x. Now it says, how many calories do you burn in 4.5 hours? Now, 4.5 hours is actually talking about our x value. So what you're going to do is you're going to plug in 4.5 in for x. So when you do that, you're just going to do 300 times 4.5. So how many calories do you burn? The answer that I received is 1,350 calories. And that's your answer. And this next one, now instead of kayaking, we're talking about rock climbing. So what you're going to do is you're going to graph the table, write a linear function that relates y to x, then how many calories do you burn in 5.5 hours? Go ahead and do all of the following. It's just like our previous example, and then check back to see if your answers are correct. All right, so this is what you should have gotten. In green, I graphed the function. So it ends up going up by 1,950 calories. So that's what my scale is, and I ended up graphing it. You could see that 12 hours actually kind of went off my graph a little, but that's okay. So I went ahead and graphed it in green. Then I started figuring out my slope and my y-intercept. So the slope was rise over run. I went up 1950 calories and over 3 hours. So I did 1950 divided by 3 and got 650 as our slope, which means every hour you burn 650 calories by rock climbing. Our y-intercept is 0 if we continued that graph, just like the previous problem. So our final linear function in slope-intercept form is y equals 650x. Then it says, how many calories did you burn in 5.5 hours? I plugged in 5.5 in for x, because x is talking about the hours rock climbing. I got 3,575 calories.